Godric's Hollow. In 1981, Voldemort made what he believed would be the decisive move to secure his immortality and absolute rule over the wizarding world. After hearing part of Sybil Trelawney's prophecy, he concluded that Harry Potter was the child destined to bring about his downfall. Rather than wait for the boy to grow into a threat, he decided to strike while Harry was still an infant. With Peter Pettigrew's betrayal of the Potters' location under the Fidelius charm, Voldemort gained direct access to their hidden home in Godric's Hollow. On Halloween night, he stormed the cottage, killing James Potter instantly. Lily Potter, however, refused to abandon her son even when offered the chance to live. Voldemort dismissed her defiance as meaningless sentiment. To him, love was weakness, and sacrifice carried no magical weight. What he failed to grasp was that Lily's voluntary death invoked one of the oldest forms of protective enchantment known to wizardkind. Her selfless act created a magical bond that shielded Harry from mortal harm. When Voldemort cast the killing curse at the child, the spell rebounded upon him. Instead of erasing the prophecy, Voldemort's body was destroyed, his wand blasted aside, and his soul fractured yet further. Reduced to a wraith-like state, he fled across forests and ruins, incapable of existing except by parasitically possessing animals or weak-minded hosts. The very plan designed to prevent his downfall became the moment it began. By underestimating the power of love and ancient sacrificial magic, Voldemort created the legend of the boy who lived. His arrogance not only marked his first great defeat, but ensured that the wizarding world gained a symbol of hope around which resistance to his return would later rally. The Hogwarts job. Long before his downfall at Godric's Hollow, Voldemort had already set his sights on Hogwarts as a foundation for power. He knew that the school was more than a place of learning. It was the center of magical culture in Britain, shaping young witches and wizards who would later lead the wizarding world. By controlling it, he could control the future. His plan was deceptively simple: secure the post of defense against the dark arts professor. After leaving Hogwarts, Tom Riddle worked briefly at Borgin and Burke's, but his ambitions soon grew beyond acquiring magical artifacts. Confident in his influence and skills, he returned to the castle in the late 1950s to meet with Albus Dumbledore, now headmaster. Outwardly, he presented himself as a polished young man eager to teach. In truth, he wanted unrestricted access to Hogwarts' magical resources, a constant supply of impressionable students, and the legitimacy that came with an official position. With Hogwarts as his base, he could both spread his ideology and discreetly recruit followers to his cause. But Dumbledore saw through the facade. Having observed Riddle since his student days, he recognized the dangerous intensity behind the request. Sensing ulterior motives, he refused to grant him the job. Voldemort's mask slipped briefly, revealing anger and arrogance. Before leaving, he cursed the position so that no one would ever successfully hold it for more than a year. This curse was Voldemort's attempt at revenge, but it ended up working against him. Instead of gaining control of Hogwarts, he created a constant cycle of instability that disrupted his own long-term goals. Defense against the dark arts became a notorious position, exposing corruption, incompetence, and ironically, teaching students how to resist dark magic. By denying him the foothold he sought, Dumbledore ensured that Voldemort's scheme collapsed before it even began. The Hogwarts job, intended as a path to dominance, became another example of Voldemort's arrogance backfiring. The Stone Plot. When Voldemort first regained a shadow of life after his defeat at Godric's Hollow, he was desperate for a path back to full strength. His survival had been reduced to a parasitic existence, clinging to snakes and weak-minded beings. By 1991, he found a more effective host in Professor Quirinus Quirrell, whose timid nature made him easy to dominate. With Quirrell's body under his control, Voldemort launched a scheme to seize the Philosopher's Stone, the legendary object created by Nicholas Flamel that could grant both immortality and unlimited wealth. The plan was layered. First, Voldemort used Quirrell to infiltrate Hogwarts, where the stone had been hidden under Dumbledore's protection. Next, he tested the defenses surrounding it, charmed keys, enchanted plants, and magical puzzles, all while avoiding suspicion. His final step was to acquire the stone and use it to restore his body, ensuring permanent immortality and ending his reliance on fragile Horcrux anchors alone. But Voldemort underestimated two things. The first was Dumbledore's foresight. Every protection around the stone had been designed not only as a barrier, but as a test Harry, Ron, and Hermione could uniquely overcome. The second was Harry himself. Voldemort dismissed the magical bond that Lily Potter's sacrifice had left on her son. When Quirrell attempted to seize Harry in the underground chamber, the protection caused Quirrell's flesh to burn and disintegrate. The stone itself was ultimately removed from danger when Dumbledore and Flamel agreed to destroy it. The Stone Plot was meant to be Voldemort's triumphant return to power. Instead, it left him weaker than before, exposed his presence to Dumbledore, and showed once again that his arrogance blinded him to forces beyond his understanding. His reliance on others and his obsession with objects of power betrayed him, turning what should have been his rebirth into another crushing failure. The Chamber Diary. Voldemort's next great scheme was woven directly into one of his Horcruxes. In 1943, while still a student at Hogwarts, Tom Riddle created a Horcrux from his diary, using the murder of Myrtle Warren, later known as Moaning Myrtle. But the diary was no ordinary vessel. Unlike his other Horcruxes, it was enchanted to act as a weapon, capable of preserving Riddle's 16-year-old memory and manipulating anyone who wrote in its pages. The plan was twofold. First, the diary would allow the Chamber of Secrets to be reopened long after Riddle's time at Hogwarts, releasing the basilisk to purge the school of Muggle-born students. Second, it would ensure Riddle's younger self could continue his mission, essentially granting him a second life independent of his current form. When Lucius Malfoy slipped the diary into Ginny Weasley's cauldron in 1992, the trap was sprung. Under the diary's influence, Ginny wrote her fears and secrets into its pages, gradually losing control as Tom Riddle's memory grew stronger. Through her, the chamber was reopened. Muggle-borns were attacked, and the school once again fell into fear. Voldemort's scheme nearly succeeded. Ginny's life force was meant to be drained completely, allowing Riddle's memory to manifest as a physical body. But this plan carried a fatal flaw. Voldemort treated the diary as a tool, not as one of the most vital pieces of his soul. He assumed it would never fall into enemy hands, and so he underestimated both Harry and the properties of basilisk venom. When Harry destroyed the diary with the fang in the chamber itself, the Horcrux was annihilated. The chamber diary scheme not only failed, but exposed the vulnerability of Horcruxes long before Voldemort realized anyone suspected their existence. What he believed to be a safe extension of his immortality became the first Horcrux destroyed, chipping away at the very foundation of his supposed invincibility. The Graveyard Duel. By 1995, Voldemort's fragmented existence had stretched to its breaking point. Sustained by unicorn blood and Nagini's venom, he remained little more than a wraith. His scheme was bold. Use a complex dark ritual to regain his body and publicly kill Harry Potter before his Death Eaters. The location was chosen with care. Little Hangleton, the graveyard where his Muggle father was buried, tying the ritual to his bloodline. The ritual required 3 key ingredients: bone of the father, flesh of the servant, and blood of the enemy. Wormtail provided his own hand. Voldemort's father's remains were exhumed, and Harry's blood was taken by force. With these sacrifices, Voldemort emerged reborn, a fully restored body cloaked in power. The scheme was meant to demonstrate his dominance. The prophecy child destroyed, his loyal Death Eaters reunited, and the wizarding world thrown back into fear. But arrogance marred the plan. Rather than kill Harry immediately, Voldemort staged a theatrical duel. He wanted his followers to see him humiliate Harry, to reinforce his supremacy. What he had not foreseen was the twin-core connection between Harry's wand and his own. When he cast the killing curse against Harry's disarming charm, the wands locked in priori incantatem, producing echoes of Voldemort's past victims. This gave Harry the chance to break free and escape with Cedric Diggory's body. The consequences were devastating. Instead of a quiet return, Voldemort's reappearance was marked by failure. His Death Eaters saw him unable to kill a boy, and his dependence on ritual sacrifice revealed weakness rather than strength. The Ministry continued to deny his return, but those who were present could not forget the sight of Voldemort's defeat. The Graveyard Duel, intended as his grand resurgence, exposed the flaws in his obsession with spectacle. His hunger for recognition cost him victory, turning what could have been a decisive triumph into another narrow escape for Harry Potter. The Lost Prophecy. In 1996, Voldemort turned his attention back to the prophecy that had first marked Harry as his equal. He knew only part of it, thanks to Severus Snape's eavesdropping years earlier, but he wanted the full text to confirm his path. His scheme was to lure Harry into retrieving it from the Department of Mysteries, where prophecies were stored in fragile glass orbs. Voldemort himself could not remove the orb. Only those directly named in a prophecy could safely handle it. This restriction forced him to manipulate Harry into doing the task for him. Through visions planted in Harry's mind via their mental connection, Voldemort fabricated an image of Sirius Black being tortured inside the Ministry. Convinced his godfather was in mortal danger, Harry rushed to the Department of Mysteries with his friends. The Death Eaters lay in wait, instructed to capture Harry and seize the prophecy. For Voldemort, it was a perfect trap. Harry would deliver the prophecy himself, and the boy's desperation would ensure success. But again, the scheme unraveled. Harry and his friends fought fiercely, holding off the Death Eaters long enough for the Order of the Phoenix to arrive. In the chaos, the prophecy orb slipped from Harry's grasp and shattered, destroying its contents forever. Voldemort had gained nothing, while the wizarding world gained everything, undeniable proof of his return. Worse still, The battle exposed the cost of his manipulation. Sirius was killed during the fight, not as part of Voldemort's plan, but as collateral damage. Harry's grief only deepened his resolve to oppose him. The Lost Prophecy scheme had aimed to secure ultimate knowledge and weaken Harry's will. Instead, Voldemort was left empty-handed, his Death Eaters imprisoned, and the secret of his return revealed to all. The Draco task. By 1996, Voldemort's confidence had grown after publicly regaining his body, but his paranoia grew as well. His next scheme was both a punishment and a test. Assign Draco Malfoy the task of assassinating Albus Dumbledore. On the surface, it was a strategic strike. Dumbledore was the only wizard Voldemort truly feared, and removing him would tilt the war firmly in Voldemort's favor. But beneath that, the task was designed to punish Lucius Malfoy for his failures, forcing his teenage son into a mission that seemed impossible. Draco's assignment was ruthless. He had to find a way to kill the most powerful wizard alive inside the walls of Hogwarts, a fortress protected by enchantments older than Voldemort himself. To aid him, Voldemort provided the unbreakable vow through Snape, binding the professor to complete the mission if Draco could not. For Voldemort, this was a flawless scheme. Either the boy succeeded and Dumbledore was dead, or Draco failed and the entire Malfoy family was disgraced beyond recovery. Yet the plan faltered because Voldemort underestimated two things. First was Dumbledore's foresight. Gravely weakened by the cursed Gaunt Ring, Dumbledore had already arranged his death with Snape to protect Draco's soul and ensure the Elder Wand's allegiance was not easily traced. Second was Snape's true loyalty. Believing Snape fully devoted, Voldemort placed him at the center of the task, never realizing that Snape's actions aligned more with protecting Harry than with serving him. The outcome delivered Dumbledore's death, but not on Voldemort's terms. The headmaster's sacrifice preserved Draco's humanity and strengthened Harry's resolve. Meanwhile, Voldemort falsely assumed that killing Dumbledore transferred the Elder Wand's loyalty to Snape, setting the stage for his final downfall. The Draco task, intended to secure victory, instead created the chain of misjudgments that ensured his defeat. The Elder Wand. Voldemort's final scheme revolved around the most infamous object in wizarding history, the Elder Wand. Believing that his defeats were due not to his own flaws, but to the limitations of his wand, he became obsessed with seizing the weapon said to make its master unbeatable. After Dumbledore's death, Voldemort broke into his tomb and stole the wand, convinced that possessing it would guarantee his ultimate victory. What Voldemort never understood was the true law of wand lore. The Elder Wand's allegiance was not won by theft, but by mastery, passing from wizard to wizard through defeat. Voldemort assumed that because Snape had killed Dumbledore, the wand belonged to him. Thus, he murdered Snape in the Shrieking Shack during the Battle of Hogwarts, believing it would force the wand's loyalty to shift. In truth, the wand had never answered to Snape at all. Draco Malfoy, who had disarmed Dumbledore atop the Astronomy Tower, was its true master. By extension, Harry, who later overpowered Draco, became the wand's rightful owner. When Voldemort faced Harry in the final duel, he trusted the Elder Wand to overcome any resistance. But because its loyalty lay with Harry, the killing curse he cast rebounded. The very wand Voldemort believed would make him invincible ensured his destruction instead. His misunderstanding of wand lore, rooted in arrogance and a refusal to study magic he considered beneath him, proved fatal. This final scheme encapsulated the fatal pattern of Voldemort's life. Time and again, he placed blind faith in objects, power, and domination, never recognizing the deeper truths of magic: love, loyalty, and choice. By seizing the Elder Wand, he believed he had conquered destiny. In reality, he delivered himself to it. The Elder Wand, far from saving him, became the instrument of his ultimate defeat.